entire globe involving hundreds of different cultures explaining the same phenomenon by different names.
The nature of the footprints, namely their remarkable consistency, their biomechanical appropriateness, those aspects that are extremely compelling.
Hey everybody, it's Dana Halloran.
And this is Tim Halloran. Welcome to the Bigfoot Influencers. We're so happy that you're here joining us, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Well, not yet.
Not yet, but when this
okay. When this airs, it's going to be New Year's Eve.
So we're going to be close. Okay.
And Merry Christmas too, because we missed that. And
so, hey, we got an exciting guest joining us today. An amazing guest, a little different than what we normally do, which is great. We're going to have Dan Young. And for those who don't know Dan, which you'll get to know him after we get him in the air and in the studio rather. Mm-hmm. In the Midwest, he's everyone knows who he is, but in the Bigfoot world, maybe not. So we're super excited to have Dan, and we're gonna have some fun with Dan.
Yay!
We're gonna let him talk about his background. So let's bring him in.
All right.
Hey Dan, how are you?
Happy Squatchifus.
Yeah, that's one we forgot.
Hey, there's another holiday we forgot. Thank you very much,
definitely.
Dan.
Well, if they can do Festivus, why can't we do Squatchifus?
Thank you.
I'm with you there.
We're 100% with you. So we're super excited to have you on the show, Dan. And we're over here on the East Coast, and you're over there in Iowa, right?
Iowa, where the corn is king. Absolutely.
Yeah, we have corn too.
Yeah, we
have some corn here.
Most of our corn goes to feed all the chicken farms, but they produce it for the chickens, and then we eat the chickens.
Yep. So it helps.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks for joining us, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's my honor. Thank you for asking me to be here.
Awesome.
Appreciate that.
So normally we just want to start off by for the audience who don't know who you are, maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about you and what you do.
Yep. Sure. I was the 2023 Walmart Greeter of the Year. Very honored to get that. Honestly, guys, there's not much to tell. I've just been blessed enough. I've been hosting radio and TV shows for the last 26 years. I'm the host of the Outdoor Call Radio app network. You can download it on your Android or listen to it on Alexa. It's free to listen. And had my own TV show for 20 years called Outdoors Traditions, which was a hunting, a little bit of fishing, but mostly hunting. I do a little bit hunting. You can kind of see that behind me.
A little bit.
Well, I like it. You can't grill it till you kill it. So,
yes, thank you.
You're welcome. But it makes it easier on everybody. But just been very honored to promote the outdoors and try to get kids in outdoor activities, and just been doing that the last 26 years. So that's it. Me in a nutshell. Pretty easy.
Wow, Dan. So you have like a pretty cool life there. Like you're living the dream.
I do live the dream. I get to see my wife and my dog every day. Yeah.
Yay. So do you have any kids?
I do. My son, I've got a 23-year-old son, and my daughter's 18. So I've been blessed. The outdoors name will carry on eventually somehow. So,
do your kids like to hunt as well?
Absolutely not. That's what they love to fish, and my son likes to shoot. He was in the military for a little bit, and I've been doing this for so long. When they had it around them the whole time, I mean, the first thing I bought my daughter was a camouflage little jumper, onesie, But I just never really forced it on them. I do it for a living, and if they wanted to do it, I was definitely going to be super stoked about it. But they just they didn't gravitate to it. But growing up, I went squirrel hunting and rabbit hunting with my uncle and my dad, but I didn't get into the big game stuff until I actually got back home from the Navy, and that was back in the mid 80s. And I picked up a compound bow, and I just fell in love with it, and that's when I really started hunting. Except for small game. So I'm hoping still later in life, as long as they're healthy and happy, guys. That's all I really care about.
Absolutely.
We definitely know that.
So what advice would you have for like people who like I feel like we would be really into hunting. Like I love to cook, as you know, and I love the idea of cooking with deer meat and just harvesting my own meat from the woods, just like I do in my garden. So what would you recommend for people who don't really have anybody to go hunting with? Like, how do you learn how to hunt?
Oh, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can join a local bow hunting association if you want to be a bow hunter. If you want to if you want to be a rifle hunter or a shotgun hunter, there's other conservation groups. The thing about hunting, it's the best conservation for everything and anything involved. It gets people out recreating in the outdoors. They're a lot more healthier and happier. You're getting out in that fresh air. It does help the animals because the people that buy the hunting and fishing permits, that annual money goes back for local state organizations to buy habitat, to put restocking in. So hunting and fishing is some of the best conservation you could ever get involved with, and it's going to enrich your life if you do that.
Yeah, and also seems like, everybody's all into this like pasture range and, free range chickens and, but I mean, like if you're killing a deer in the woods and eating it, that's grass fed, natural, 100% organic, so it just seems like it makes more sense.
Yeah, listen, God bless our farmers. I'm not, it just, I feel better going out and taking a deer with my bow or a turkey or a bear. I don't shoot anything unless I'm going to eat it. My whole family, we eat. And my wife, like you, Dana, loves to cook, and she can't wait till I bring elk or venison or, she loves bear. I haven't got a bear in a while because it's getting really hard to get a tag. But that's some of the best protein you'll ever eat. I mean, wild game's good for you. Yeah, you don't have all the preservatives, other stuff. Yeah.
Well, or hormones, or they're just, I think it's probably just like a lot healthier as well.
Absolutely.
So that is super cool. So when do you, let's talk about your show, the show that you're doing now. So how often are you doing? Well,
let's start with your hunting show.
Yeah, let's start with the hunting show.
So I'm on every Saturday on 7 to 9 on 1350 ESPN in Des Moines, Iowa. And then I'm on Sunday nights on the Big 550 KTRS out of St. Louis, Missouri. Those shows have been on 26 years. And then I started my own network. So technology, I've been wanting to do this for a while. Technology finally got to the part where I could own my own radio station. So we have our own network called the Outdoor Call Radio app. And I'm doing 6 radio shows a week now just to keep that up and running. And then one of the shows that we do with the network is a paranormal show. When I first met Tim, I called him in and we were talking because I was doing research for Unknown Files. That's the name of the program. And I get 12 to 15 emails a year from people around the Midwest. Dan, I got something attacking my horses, my cattle. Can you please come down and see what's going on? And so a lot of it's Bigfoot related. People say they keep hearing or seeing something. And I've went out a couple of times, and I'll be honest with you guys. I've never seen anything I don't know if Bigfoot's real or not. I love Bigfoot. I love the lore. I'm way more open-minded about Bigfoot than I have ever been because I'm in the woods 2,000 hours a year filming hunt. I've never heard or seen anything that I couldn't identify as a normal animal. But by doing this Unknown Files show and talking with people that are eyewitnesses and researchers and some of the other folks, when you start talking about, I think the footprint evidence has convinced me more than anything. I was a corpsman or a medic in the Navy back in the day, so I got a little bit of a medical background. But anatomically, there's stuff in the 50s and 60s you just couldn't fake that, especially the stuff that Dr. Meldrum talks about and some of the stuff that he has presented. That stuff, you didn't have 3D printers and stuff like that back there. So doing that type of show on Wednesday nights at 7 has really kind of got me excited about this phenomenon.
So do you find that a lot of your viewers will kind of float over to that show that you already have there on your hunting shows?
Actually, it's kind of neat because we do get a lot of crossover with that, and they love it. I took a little bit of a hiatus because we've been filming for 3 months for the TV on Respect the Game TV. That's on the Sportsman's Channel and Pursuit Channel nationally. But so we've been doing reruns, and I will start doing live shows again here in a couple weeks, and they're pumped. They've been really liking it, so it's been fun.
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
It's a fun show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan was kind enough to have me on the show, and then I kind of joined in another show with him, and we had Mark Marcel.
Oh,
on the
I
show,
remember.
yeah.
I remember hearing about that.
And
Yep.
what was it? You having people reach out to you, as you alluded to earlier, stating that something's attacking their cattle and such. Is that what got you interested in this and made you do the show?
Well, I mean, Tim, I'm a little bit older than you are, but I mean, I grew up in the 70s. I was born in, I'll be 60 next month in February. So I grew up in a pretty cool time to be a kid. And when I was growing up, In Search Of was on with Leonard Nimoy and stuff, and Bigfoot and UFOs and all that stuff was everywhere. And I just loved the lore and the stories. And we had a separate Bigfoot phenomenon going on in the 70s called Momo the Monster. And there were people all over Missouri that were calling in. And that was about the time Boggy Creek came out, the movie. Remember The Legend of Boggy Creek?
Yes.
So they had several reported sightings, and it was on the mainstream news all the time. And it was neat because we grew up on a non-working farm, and that's where I got to go fishing after school every day. But I mean, there was woods everywhere, so it was kind of, hey, Mom, am I going to get a chance to see Momo today? Or,
Right.
And then there was another one over in Illinois called the Jerseyville Mud Monster, or it was right across the river from St. Louis. They had several sightings over there. So I've always loved the lore and the stories of it, Dana. And I don't know if the people calling in or emailing me, and because we always did a Halloween, I'd always do a paranormal show on Halloween on my regular show.
Oh,
and
cool.
we talk about hunting ghosts and stuff like that. And I kind of had some experiences with some ghost stuff, and that I couldn't explain, which was pretty neat. But yeah, I keep waiting. I'm hoping someday I'll meet the big fella. It would be neat.
So Dan, when you are out hunting, are you mainly staying in Iowa, or do you travel around as well?
Oh no, I've been all over North America, and I think let's just leave it at North America. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, he was somewhere he's not supposed to be. I'm just teasing you. So Dan, all the time you spent in the woods, what would make it possible for something unknown to exist out there? I mean, you're out there all the time.
Well, no, here's the thing. I like deer, we'll start with a whitetail. You could have a mature 5, 6, 7-year-old whitetail buck that you might get a trail cam picture of, or you might get to see them, and you might not see that deer for the rest of the season, because they might travel, they might go to another farm, or wildlife will do things that just you can't explain sometimes. When you're talking about a 6, 7, 8-foot hominid that weighs several hundred pounds, there's going to be stuff running around that you would see the tracks. You would see where they've been feeding. You would find scat, which is a nice way to say their waste. Mm-hmm. And I just haven't seen anything like that I couldn't explain, Tim.
So you've never seen anything?
Nope. Never seen a track. I've never heard a whoop. I've never heard a tree knock. I've never seen a track. I did do one thing. Now, folks, listen. I'm not saying it's real, and I'm not saying it's not, because it could very well be real. I hope it is real. I love it. Mm-hmm. But I would think, if you want my humble opinion, here's my humble opinion. If it's real, it's not an ape, because apes would be too easy to prove. Apes are intelligent animals, but you're talking about something that's several hundred pounds in weight, and if they're real and they're staying away. I think they're some of the smartest creatures on earth, because I wouldn't be. Would you want to be around us? I wouldn't want to be around us.
Yeah.
With all
I
the
don't
stuff,
know.
yeah, with all the
Are you
stuff
talking
we're
Not
about
you.
me?
I love
You
you.
kind of looked at me,
No.
baby. Stop.
no, no. He has not looked at you in any other way than loving and caring, Dana.
He just looked
See,
at me like,
no.
yeah, I want to
Like,
be away from people.
yeah. But I mean,
Totally kidding.
with everything going on, I don't blame them. And if they, I think it's the first thing I hear a lot or questions I get is, where's the bodies? Well, if they are real and they're a hominid, which I would think they would be, I think that they're going to be probably close to us in genetics, and they probably if I think they have families, and by talking to a lot of my guests, a lot of the people that have seen them or had encounters of them, they see juveniles, they see family units, so I would think that they probably bury their dead.
Mm-hmm.
If one dies, they probably mourn their dead and they probably bury them. That would explain why we don't find bodies.
So when you say you think it's not an ape,
I don't think
in regards to, but you think it's a primate.
I don't
think
think
it's more
I think
human than it is ape.
I think it's more human. I think it's
Gotcha.
more like us than an ape, because if they were strictly an ape, we would have documentation of 100% proof they were real by now. Apes
Mhm.
are not going to evade cameras. They're not going to invade searches and stuff like that. I mean, you can go to any continent or any place that has an ape society, and you're going to be able to find them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to hide from you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know it did take quite a while before even like the mountain gorillas in Africa were discovered.
But the natives knew they were there.
Yeah, right.
Right. Now, the people from Britain or Europe, they when they went over, it took them a while, from England and stuff like that. But the indigenous people, they lived with them. Now, some of the people that I've had on the shows that are Native American, and I mean, you're talking about storylines that go back hundreds and hundreds of years, generations.
Mm-hmm.
And I got maybe this much Native American in me, from according to my grandmother and that. And I love Native American culture. I think they're some of the most fascinating people on God's green earth.
Mm-hmm.
But they talk about things going. You can find documentation and stories from trappers and other things where they came in and talked to tribes where they talked about the woods people, the wood folk, and they're talking about Bigfoot.
Right. Yeah, and so just like as you were saying before, that the tribal people in Africa knew they were there.
Yep.
And just as well do our Native Americans.
Yeah, I mean,
we knew that they were there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dana, I didn't mean to step on you.
No, you're fine.
We actually had a Native American person living in Northern California. I think it was Northern California, but they had no clue that tribe was in existence anymore. His name was Ishi. You ever heard about Ishi?
Mm-mm.
Go look that up. It's a great story. He was one of the last people of that tribe in existence, but people didn't know he was there for years. So you get into
so this was a person that was living in the woods.
It was a Native American that was doing what his tribe did for generations, and he finally got discovered back in I think it was in the 40s or 50s. Yeah.
Wow. So it was almost like finding one of those isolated tribes in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sure.
In the Amazon. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you can go into the Pacific Northwest, and the timber tracts there are so dense, the tree canopies are so thick. I mean, you cannot see the floor, even from the air. Mm-hmm. So now satellite telemetry, I'm not an expert enough to say that's going to get down into where they can see thermal imaging and stuff like that. But I mean, they've had plane crashes go down. It took them 2 years to find the plane. It was only a few miles away from a town. I mean, it's not impossible for me in that habitat that there's things running around that we probably don't know about.
Yeah.
Dan, do you think that it's possible, now that you've been, talking to people involved in the Bigfoot subject, do you think it's possible that hunters may overlook potential sign of or potential evidence just because they're not really looking for it. They're out there doing, looking for what they're out there to do.
Oh,
So
I
you
mean,
think they, go
I
ahead.
think Tim, people, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I walk across stuff I don't see, and then somebody will come. Like we go shed hunting all the time in the spring. Sheds are when a deer will drop its antler. It's a shed
Okay.
antler. They call it shed. And I've walked over sheds and not seen them in the grass and stuff. And then my dog, Raven, I'll have Raven with me. He helps me find sheds. He'll find one, or my buddy behind me. Did you not see that shed laying there? So that's very possible that could be happening. But I mean,
What do you guys do with the sheds?
Oh, I got them all.
Did you make a chandelier?
No, I got them. I don't know if you can see this or not, but
Oh my God.
yeah, if see where that elk is right there? I got a lot of my sheds right there, and then I've got them laying in a basket next to them. I keep them.
Oh, that's
Yeah, and they make a great chewing toy for your dog too. It's good.
okay.
They got minerals and stuff in them, and dogs love to chew on them. So
Okay.
yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah.
So I got, now that he showed the wall, because
Yeah, the wall's pretty
what's
cool.
what's the craziest thing that's happened to you out in the woods, or what's the most challenging thing that has happened to you while you're out there?
Well, deer kick my butt all the time. I've been this is my 35th year. I mean, just when you think you're starting to get it down and stuff, animals will humble you pretty quick. I mean, they're really smart animals. And I bow hunt everything. So I have to get into an intimate distance with them, 15, 20 yards, to be able to get an opportunity to take one. And a deer can smell a human being with its nose up to 300 to 400 yards away. That's how good their sense of smell is. And their eyesight is good, and so is their ears. So they've got 3 great senses to avoid you. If I would think Bigfoot, I don't know how good their sense of smell is, but that might be, if you get Dr. Meldrum on again, Tim, or talk to him, that might be a good question. Ask him what he thinks their sense of smell would be, because they could look at Gigantopithecis. I think I'm saying that right, but you could look at the nasal cavity and stuff and those, and they could probably have a hypotheses on what their sense of smell was. But if you got an animal out there that's got good eyesight, good ears, and they can smell, they can avoid humans. And deer do a good job of that if they know you're trying to get them. So
yeah, like the deer back in our woods, right behind our house, where we often go hiking, are very what do you call it? Cautious, because people hunt back there,
right?
Where like other deer that live like in town, you know what I mean? People are like taking pictures in their backyard, and like, no, our deer hear us and they're like gone. Yeah. So
yeah, and bears are even have a better sense of smell than a whitetail. So they've got some amazing abilities. So
here's a question for you. So you're hearing a lot of stories though from other hunters. So can you share some of those like encounters, experiences that you've heard from other people?
Well, there's 2 hunters that I've had on the show. One's Mark Parker. Mark was in a movie called The Flash of Beauty, which
yes, we saw that.
Yeah. So Mark was the bow hunter in that, and Mark was elk hunting out in Oregon, and he was sitting up on a ridge, and he just kept seeing or hearing stuff popping brush behind him. That sounds like something walking and breaking sticks. And so he thought it was an elk, but it kept going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it never would come out. And eventually he just kind of looked over and he saw something look on the other side of a tree, and it was a face. He looked again, and this time the head and the shoulders came out. So I can't remember how far he said it was, 35, 40 yards, but he got up and he got out of there. And he got back to camp, and he said a couple days before he was up there and something was behind him. The wind was blowing straight behind him. If you're hunting, you want to keep the wind in your favor. You don't want your scent going to the animal. So he was pretty good on his woodsman skills. I mean, you could tell that he'd been hunting before. And he said it would never come in, and then the next day is when he saw it. And he said that was pretty good. So and I like Mark. Mark's a nice man. He's not selling anything. He's not on TV. He's not trying to make money off of it. And the other gentleman is, I think it's Scotty Taylor out of California. And Scott is a member of the BFRO. And he's one of their one of their higher investigators. And Scott's a hunter, and he's had a couple encounters where he said he's seen them. And, you know, I usually I go with my gut. If I'm talking to somebody for 45, 50 minutes and they tell me, and I'll talk to them and I'll ask them a question a different way. And if they come back and it's still the same way that I heard it the first time, I believe them. You know, I believe they saw what they think they saw. Now, you know, and there's other people I've had on that I know they're full of BS, and that stands for barbecue sauce, by the way.
And obviously that wasn't me when I was on the show.
Of course not.
No, well, like Mark, you know, Mark was investigating Ape Canyon. That's where, you know, if you guys, you know about that, but I believe what Mark said. You know, there's, I'm going to have Arla on. Arla was in A Flash of Beauty. She's in the other one too. She's a really nice lady in Oklahoma. She says that she has been around a juvenile Bigfoot when she was young. When she was a little girl, one walked up on her out of the woods and she was playing. She looked up and there was a hairy kid looking at her. And and she's had encounters with them. She says now there's a lot of different philosophies when you get into the Bigfoot realm. You got flesh and blood, which everybody thinks it's just a creature. You got the woo, which is where they think they're more of a spiritual or more of a they've got extraterrestrial philosophies that maybe they're UFO or maybe an alien race related. And there's several factions that are in. It's just not one theory, you know. Arla is kind of like a mix of two, if I'm understanding it correctly. She says she can mind speak with them. So, you know, I don't have a way to say it's not real. And she's one of the nicest ladies. I talked to her for an hour on the phone, and I'd go eat some cornbread and drink some tea with her. I wouldn't.
Definitely. Yeah. Have you ever, you know, you do a lot of hunting, you know, probably shows, conferences, expos, etc. Do you have people come up to you at your booth or when you're speaking and share something that happened to them, you know, just normal hunters?
I've had a few people come up and pull me aside and say, "No, I'm not crazy," and it's usually okay.
That's interesting.
And when they preface it like that, I usually know what, you know, something's coming. But I've met a few people over the years, Tim, and listen. I know one guy. I've known this kid for 25 years, and he's not a liar. The kid, he's an honest kid. And he said that here in central Iowa, him and his father were out shotgun hunting for deer. And they came up and they were on a thicket by a river, and they kept hearing something popping and like in the river and ahead of them. And they went around and looked, and they said there was a Bigfoot standing right there on the bank of the river. And he said his name's Jesse. He said he ran around, tried to get around, and it just disappeared. So I asked him, I said, "Did you go over there and look for tracks, or did you go look in the thicket to see if it went in there and lay down?" He goes, "Damn, my dad and I got the heck out of there." And he said the next day the neighbors called him and said, "You are not going to believe what happened to us." And Jesse goes, "Let me guess, you saw a Bigfoot." And they said there was like silence. And he goes, "How did you know that?" And he goes, "Dad and I seen him yesterday."
Whoa.
So I believe Jesse 100%.
Yeah. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I mean, all of these people aren't lying. I mean, obviously there's going to be a few hoaxers or somebody who wants attention or whatever. But I mean, I truly believe that the majority of these people are not lying. They're seeing this. Who would do that to themselves anyway? Do you know what I mean? Like, why would you want to bring that kind of attention to yourself?
Well, there's a couple things I look for when I talk to somebody. I look and see if they're trying to profit from it. If they're trying to profit from it, that's a red flag for me. And then I ask them about their encounter, and then I'll go and do some research on myself, you know, in that area. And then, you know, like I said, there's certain things you can do, but honestly, Dana, I think some of it is misidentification. I think some of it, people are maybe seeing bears or seeing a feral hog. I don't hear a lot of people talk about that, but here in the Midwest and down south, there's a lot of feral hogs. And, you see something big and black running through the woods, and you might only get like a 4 or 5 second look at it. You don't know,
Yeah,
but
it's so funny that you mentioned that, Dan, because Tim and I always have like this something on the TV where we're looking at live cams from around the world, just to see what's going on in the different parts of the world weather-wise. And they have this one cam in Poland that's focused on like a bird feeder. Obviously, they're 6 hours ahead of us than here. And so was it last night?
Days,
yeah, we were just like talking and we had the TV and I'm like, oh my God, look, there's a wild boar eating the bird seed. It was like in the middle of the night. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, they, as well in Europe, they have, they call them wild boars there. I don't know how much difference there is, but it was just sitting there eating the bird seed at nighttime, but they probably didn't even know that they had wild boars there around them.
Yeah, those are big animals though, because those can get 200 to 300 pounds,
Yep.
So, there's something like I said, if someone sees something 7-8 feet running in front of them, or walking around and popping brush, or whooping, if it happened to me, I honestly, I'm probably stupid enough, I'd probably ease in and try to see if I could see it, instead of I think my inquisitive nature would take over from being scared. I've had bears bluff charge me up in Canada and in Colorado. I was elk hunting a few years ago, and I got a black bear behind me right there.
See it.
Yeah, that's about a 400-pound black bear right there, and I got him with a bow. But I had one bigger than him. I just got up through I was walking up on the mountain in the dark. It was me, my bow, and my camera arm. I had about 60, 70 pounds of stuff with me.
Wow.
Got to the trailhead. The trail split off. It cut to the left. The left was where my ladder stand was. And I just got to where the cutoff was, and I heard something go pop. And it's starting to get light, and I looked over, and I saw a big black thing, and I'm going, well, that's a bear. And he started whooping at me. So my fat little butt hurried up and got to to the ladder stand, and I just got to like the second or third, and he's coming. He's coming.
Oh my God,
whooping,
that's scary.
And I got up the stand, and he stopped about 15, 20 yards, and he's popping his jaws and woofing at me. He's bluff charging me.
Wow.
And there was a mule deer calf I kept seeing a couple days before me, and then the day before I didn't see it anymore. I didn't see it that day. So I'm guessing he killed that mule deer calf, and he had it stashed over there, and he didn't want me around that food.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But
so I mean, like, what's going through your mind? Are you like super scared? I mean, because you're out there by yourself, Dan.
Oh, yeah, it was just me. Yeah, I was like,
oh my
well,
God.
Yeah, and I, most of the time, like in Canada, when I was up in Alberta, I had a big sow come in. I just got the outfitter let me out, and I'm walking 100 yards through the trail to the bait site. You're hunting over. They've got beavers and stuff laid out for them. It's a bait site. And I got halfway there, and I heard popping, and then I could see there was a big sow, and she came and blushed, and there was some big chunky woods on the path. I just started chucking them at her, and she ran off. And then I got up in my stand, and I had one start to come up the ladder, and I just took one of my arrows, not the broadhead side. That broadhead's the pointy thing you shoot them with.
Right.
So I took the fletching and the knock side, and I just smacked it on the nose. I said, "Get out of here!" Smack. And he got down and grunted at me and took off. But
oh my gosh, Dan!
Most of the time, that it's just when the black bears will kill a human if there's documentation of that all the time. The most dangerous time, though, you're going to have to worry is don't get between her and her cubs. That's where most people get into trouble, is when you get in between the sow and the cubs. But yeah, they get on a food source. They can be very territorial.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the scariest stuff that's happened to me.
So. That's just scary enough.
Yeah.
Do you ever take trips? I mean, I'm sure the answer is yes, but where you go for extended period of time by yourself out in the woods?
No, I mean, not filming and stuff, because I've got so many batteries and stuff, Tim. I got to charge over. And most of the time I go to places that I go to, like Kansas. I go to the same outfitting place every year. It's Triple H Outfitters, and they're like my second family. And You know, I call Donovan's, I call her mom, you know, Connie. Hi, Mom, I'm back. And she's only a few years older than me. I call it, you know, it's just.
She's like, who are you calling mom?
Yeah. I mean, I've been around those people for so long. They're just family, you know, and I try to go back. I just went moose hunting in Alberta a year and a half ago. And the guide was with us, and a buddy of mine went with me. And I'm sitting there self-filming, so I'm on a river system. There's moose beds now. There's grizzly bears there, and we weren't allowed to have a gun. Canada, you can't have a handgun, and the guide can't have a handgun. So I had my bow. That was a little uncomfortable sitting out there because you know an arrow and a grizzly bear is not a great combination.
No.
You know. No. But especially if they're coming at you and you don't have time to pick a spot and draw. But I will tell you this one. This is kind of funny. I'm sitting there and I'm just watching. I'm glassing the river. You know, I'm looking for any kind of moose sign or seeing what's going on. And I hear pop, pop, pop. So I turn the camera on. I grab my bow and I'm right on the trail. I'm 10 yards off the main trail. And I got moose beds all around me. I'm in a moose bed. I'm high because I got grass all around me, you know. I'm sitting leaning against a tree, and I got brush up to about here to hide me. And I pop, pop. Then I heard shh, 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 shh. I'm going, man, my heart's popping. I'm starting to shake. I'm starting to, you know, and just out of my peripheral vision, I see movement. I put my release on my string, my bowstring, and then I look over. It's Kent, my guide. He's coming. I go, man, you know better than that. You're supposed to whistle or something. I go, give me a heart attack, man. I'm sitting there going, a bear's going to come over and grab me, or, you know, that was a little uncomfortable.
That's fun. Is it easy to tell the difference between bipedal and quadrupedal, footsteps?
You know, Tim, that's a good question. I guess it would depend on the terrain, you know, because, you know, a lot of times if it's a squirrel or a deer, it's but if you're walking, it'd be you know what I'm saying? Because deer, a lot of the animals will walk in the same tracks as they're moving, you know, if they're using 4 feet. So, that's a good question. I would say yes. You could tell the difference.
So here's a question, Dan. Oh, I'm sorry, honey. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I can tell if my buddy's walking in. Now, Kent, I was in that. What do they call that stuff? Muckluck or whatever. You sink when you walk. I mean, the ground's so saturated. You know, you couldn't hear when we walked in. You couldn't hear because that stuff. I mean, it's like sponge. It's like a sponge. You're walking on a sponge. So that was kind of hard to hear 2 feet. But the moose and stuff, popping brush and stuff, I could hear moose walking around me from time to time. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's amazing because, I mean, just in order to get close to an animal is extremely hard, and it takes a lot of experience. So I guess that just makes it so much harder to try to stalk a Bigfoot. I mean, if you're... Yeah, it's almost impossible, probably.
I don't think you could. I don't think you could. I would think that their senses would be enough. They're going to know. I mean, if you think about it, you're in their living room. Okay, they live there 24/7. So you know that goes back to the cameras. You know, if there's an animal that's living in that area. You know, if you go in there and put stuff out, I think most animals can sense. What do you? Your body.
Electromagnetism.
EMF.
Electric. Yeah. Okay. Right.
EMF. Your body, when you move, your body is emitting EMF. And some birds and other animals can see that. You know, that's why there's a company out there, and I'm not sponsored by them. I don't get a dime for saying this, but they're called HEX, HECAS. And divers actually wear wetsuits that are made of that HEX material to block sharks from sensing their EMF. Because sharks, that's how sharks on the very tip of their nose, they've got little sensory organs that pick up electromagnetic fields. It's called amples of Lorenzini. That's what that's called. and that's how they can find and hunt stuff. Plus their sense of smell. But when you're
Do you think
moving
there's
around,
a possibility that Sasquatches have the ability to sense the EMFs off of other animals?
I would think that would be a theory why if they see EMF that probably why people can't just walk up on them. I think if you walk up on them and you see one, they wanted you to see them. But
and maybe another reason why they're avoiding trail cams, because they're picking up the EMF.
Yeah. And I would think that's, now there's literally thousands and thousands of trail cam pictures of Bigfoot every year. How many of them are real? How many of them are fake?
Right. Yeah.
Because
is it a rock? Is it a log? Is it?
Well, no. They actually, there's video and pictures of creatures walking around, or they see a hand come in, or But how many of that is real or staged?
Yeah. Right. I think the most compelling one I've ever seen is the one of the eagle's nest. Have you seen that?
I have. Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah.
Has that been debunked or?
I don't know, but I've seen it. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, that was. There's a spot where you wouldn't expect. No, they weren't planning. Well, supposedly they weren't planning it.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of them, you get into some of the woo side of this, they start talking about where they can phase out or shield themselves, or they call it predator. They're like predators. The movie Predator. They can actually phase in and phase out, or they go interdimensional. And I don't know about all of that. I will say this. I know a few Native American people that their great grandfathers were shaman, and shaman was one of the most respected. That's another way of saying medicine man. They were the most respected, or besides the chief. They held such a high place in the tribe. And shaman, when they would go and pick a village out, they would look for portals, magnetic fields, portals, where they said it had so much strong medicine, from the Great Father. That's where they would. That's how they would pick a new village site out. So I don't think there's. The portal thing I could believe more than the predator thing, But that's just me. I think if it's real, if it's out there running around, I think it's probably more flesh and blood than anything. But that's just until you don't know.
Right.
There's just as much proof that there are Bigfoot as there is proof that there's not Bigfoot.
Right.
Yeah, and also if it's safe to say that it's very possible that they are a predatory animal if they're flesh and blood. So I would think they're omnivores. They're both. They do prey on animals, and then they eat plants and stuff. Now here's another thing that I don't hear a lot of folks talk about is they migrate. They follow the food sources, and a lot of folks, you never hear them talk about a population of them would migrate. And to me, that makes total sense. I mean, if you got more ample food out there, like acorns or berries, they're going to migrate up and down the mountain range to where the plants are edible. And that goes back to the Native American culture too. On the Pacific Northwest, they would go out, and the Native Americans would pick huckleberries and blackberries and stuff like that, but they would always leave enough for the woods people out of respect.
Right.
So, I mean, go ahead, Tim.
No, you go ahead.
No, there's a lot of stories out there where they used to trade with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a history of them. So we have a past with them. We have a present, and we may have a future as well. So it's not just something that's going on right now.
Right.
For sure.
Right, definitely. And if you were giving suggestions to someone out there looking for it from your hunting experience, what would you, so say you were going to lead an expedition to find Bigfoot, what kind of advice would you do? How would you prepare for it?
If I was going to go try to find one or have an encounter, if I had the resources to do it, I would go out into a population area where the sightings have been some of the highest concentrated sightings, and I would plan to stay there at least 5 or 6 months, because going for a weekend or going for a week, your chances of seeing what you want to see are probably pretty nil. And the reason I would go for that long is you're going to have to set up areas and get into travel routes or pinch points between places where they could bed or sleep to where they're going to go for food. And I would set up I would approach it just like a whitetail hunt. When I go look for deer, I look for where they're sleeping. I look for where they're going to eat, and I would try to set up in that middle area or that staging area. And that's where I try to have my opportunity or encounter to get what I want. And I would approach just like that, but I would do it for 5 or 6 months. There's also another theory out there. I can't remember what the gentleman's name were. There was 2 gentlemen, but they said it takes an average of 200 hours for an animal to be habitualized to a human's presence before they're comfortable being around that animal. And these people were solid biologists. I mean, they're well known in the biological community. I can't remember. Isn't that awful? I should have.
I know who you're talking about too. Yeah, Dr. Russ Jones had told us the story. Told me originally about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. I think that animals will get they'll get accustomed to your presence if they know that that you're not out there to whack them, to eat them. They become more desensitized to your scent, to your movements. And so that's why if I was going to do that, I would try to do it for 5 or 6 months, and I would try to stay in that area and I would put out cameras that that had regular IR abilities, and then I would try to do other things. Put cameras out that maybe don't emit an IR or an EMF. The old trail cameras back in the 60s and 70s used a regular 35 millimeter film. So, and nobody uses those anymore. They're using the cellular ones now, and they're using the ones with the high intensity IR, infrared. But I would go old school and try to do that myself, and then I would just sit out there and listen, just be quiet and listen and see, if you could hear a whoop or a wood knock or something that you could go try to triangulate and see where it's coming from.
Yeah, and that's a great point about the cameras. That was something that I mentioned. I think at our last podcast, we were talking about the Patterson-Gimlin film from 1967 and how that was filmed with a camera.
35
millimeter.
8 millimeter, what? 8
millimeter, no EMF.
It's the old.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not going to emit any kind of frequency that's going to spook any kind of animal. And they came in on horseback, which could have helped them a little bit with their scent as well. So I think that's great advice, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, Patty, to me, that's the nickname of the female Sasquatch that they said they got. To me, I mean, that film has been scrutinized more than probably any other piece of footage, except for maybe the JFK footage.
Yeah.
And with all the technology they can actually, they're saying they can see the muscle groups and the body of that animal. I don't think that's a hoax. I really don't. To me, of anything that's out there, I think that footage still stands up as something that I can't say that's not real.
The Patterson-Gimlin film is that there's still a lot of people who doubt it, and it's basically going to take a live one or a dead one. What do you think about that?
If they find a live one or they find a body, that's the only way you're going to convince everybody.
Yeah.
That it's real. To me, it's the best evidence to me, the one that's got me more open-minded than anything else out there is the footprints. When you start looking at the dermal ridges and the anatomy of some of these functions, that the feet, the toes and everything are atrophied or there's deformities in them. Someone would have to be a podiatrist, or they didn't have that kind of technology to go and put that stuff out there in the 50s and the 60s. Some of the castings and stuff like that Dr. Meldrum has from back and then, to me, is some of the most definitive proof that something is running around out there.
Yeah, and I can remember in talking to Dr. Jeff myself, him mentioning that to me was that we have evidence. These footprints are not fake. something out there is making these footprints, and that's the evidence. There's not believing or not believing. It's not about something that we just have to have faith in. We have evidence, and those footprints are the evidence. So
I agree.
yeah.
And why would someone be out in the middle of nowhere making footprints where no one may even find them? That always boggles me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good point. But as closer you get to population centers and stuff, that's when I think most of the hoaxing or the hoaxers, they're trying to get their 15 minutes of fame on TikTok or Instagram, and but if you get out there and you're 15, 20 miles out in the middle of nowhere, and you come across something like that in a creek bank or in a forest floor, or you find some animal remains that's partially eating, and then you find a footprint. To me, that would be pretty credible.
Yeah. It is so funny too, because whenever I go into work, every couple of times a month, people are like, "Oh my God, Dina, they found a Bigfoot. I saw it on TikTok."
And
Like, girl, that is not a Bigfoot. I don't even need to see the video. I don't need to. It's fake, okay? But that happens at least twice a month because everybody knows that I'm into Bigfoot. So
well, and you got CGI now. I mean, you don't even have to do that. You can. There's a lot of things you can superimpose on there now. So
yeah, I know, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the folks who actually see one out in the woods? Would someone be that crazy to be dressed up in a suit when there's hunters around? I mean, you're a hunter.
I wouldn't do it. That's a great way to get killed. I mean, I personally would never shoot one. If I saw one running around, or if I saw something, I would not point a weapon. There's two things for me to point a weapon at something. One's to take it home to eat it. The other one would be self-defense. Other than that, I would be taking out my phone, or I'd be trying to walk towards it and see if I could get, I would want to see it, but yeah, if someone's out there running around in a costume, that's probably not a great idea, because that's a great way to get not being around very long.
So yeah, because we hear that a lot, where people, some people go towards it and other people run away.
Well,
because I think it's hard to know until you're truly in that situation. But yeah, some people have that. I mean, obviously you have experience with big game out in the middle of nowhere, but you wouldn't obviously run towards a bear.
You don't want to run at a bear or run away from a bear. I mean, anything you're gonna, that's just gonna get their saliva glands going. You don't want to do that fast fright or flight thing on a bear. You want to, if it's a black bear, you want to hold your arms up and be as big as you can, so you're intimidating the bear. If it's a grizzly bear, God help you if hopefully you got a revolver or something with you, because you're not going to outrun a grizzly bear, and you're going to want to get down and ball up or try to, it's not going to be good. So grizzly bears are.
I mean, running towards a 600 or 700 pound, 8 foot tall furry animal, that doesn't seem to you as dangerous.
If it's bipedal and it's standing erect, and I can see it looks like a human, then I would probably try to ease up and try to get us, within a yard that I could positively identify it or get a good picture. That's just me, though. I'm not being brave. I'm just saying I would want to know,
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, and Dan's got little, and being used to big game.
Right.
Now,
yeah.
Speaking of grizzly bears, did you know that Action Jackson, from Yellowstone, has seen a Bigfoot as well?
Action Jackson, for the folks that don't know who that is, was probably one of the most historical park rangers in our country, and he said that he's had several encounters of Bigfoot in his career. So yeah, Tim, I read all about. That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yep.
So as we wind down, my friend, can we one more time tell the audience how they can keep up with you and follow all the amazing things that you're doing?
Absolutely, it'd be my honor. They can go on Facebook and look up Outdoors Dan or the Outdoor Call Radio app Facebook page. You can also look up Dan Young, and they can download the Outdoor Call Radio app. It's free. I'm going to try and keep that as free as I can. We've been on 2 years now, and I really don't ever want to charge for that. But if you like to hunt or fish, or if you like the paranormal, Wednesday nights at 7 is when you want to tune in for the Unknown Files show. We'll be back up in January 10th. I think we're going to go live again. We stream it on Facebook Live as well as the app. And you can always go to the outdoorcallradio.com website, and everything there is there for you. And listen, if you hear for something, or if you're out in my area, I'm always out and about at shows. I'd love to talk to you. There's been several people that I know in the hunting community that have said they've seen one. One would be shocking if I told you who it was, but I won't, because I told him I never would. But I actually, last year in Ohio, he came up to me and said him and his brothers, all three of them, saw one, and it scared the heck out of them. So just, I would love, always willing to talk with anybody. And the one rule that we have on that show, it's okay to disagree or not believe, but everybody's going to be respectful towards everybody. And that's, if you're being disruptive or just being disrespectful to the guest or whatever, I get rid of you. It just, everybody needs to be polite, and it's okay not to believe something, but you need to at least be polite about it.
Absolutely. That's a good point. That's what we should talk to all of the Bigfoot people about, being that respectful and nice.
Yeah. A lot of them are, but there's some that aren't. But and then what we'll do for the audience, we'll share in the show notes links to all of how to keep up with Dan and his shows and his television show as well. And this was awesome.
This was awesome, yeah. Dan. So wait, when are we ever going to cross paths?
Oh, I'd love to see you guys sometime.
Yeah, so we're going to be, I don't know if we're ever in Iowa, though.
Well,
okay.
I travel. If you guys are going to be around, let me know. And hey, you guys, you know Amy Boo, right?
Yeah.
I love that woman.
Yeah, we do too.
She's amazing. And folks, if you're ever out, she goes to hunting expos and sets up a Bigfoot booth, and she wants to talk to hunters. So I've got a lot of respect for her. Yeah. She's a very nice lady. So
yeah, she's super cool. She was one of our first guests.
Yeah, she was early. Yeah. And Amy was in my book as well. So
yeah, she's very
awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So very cool, Dan.
Love to see you guys. Love to get some of that lasagna sometime, Dana.
Oh, that's a special thing.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, it's good to meet you. Thank you so much for being on our show.
It was my honor, and you guys let me know if I can help you with any way, and we'll have you on the Unknown Files here in a couple months when you guys got some free time.
All right, sounds good.
Definitely. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks,
Talk
Dan.
Soon.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Woohoo! That was cool. I like Dan.
Yeah, he's such a wealth of knowledge. I think it was cool to have a different perspective of, especially someone who's in the woods
so much
as his profession.
Yes,
it's what he does.
Yep, and he's a smart guy too.
Honest, open, and was a really cool show.
That was a cool show.
So I hope you guys enjoyed as well.
Yep.
And make sure you head on over to the Untold Radio AM network, like and subscribe. Check us out on all the socials. You can go to the BigfootInfluencers.com. And we appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for tuning in and being, guests, not guests, but fans of the show.
Yep. Thanks, guys.